when it comes to violence against women, from 2001 to 2008, there's an estimated 1 woman victim of violence every 1 hour and 56 minutes. One woman is battered every 1 hour. Based on the data from the Philippine National Police, from 2001 to 2008, there's an average of 6,100 documented cases of women victims of violence per year. According to Gabriela, there's an estimated average of 300 women victims of violence who sought help in their organization during the period of our current president. Violence against children, every year there's an average of 7,000 child victims of violence who sought assistance with the Women's Desk of the Philippine National Police. Domestic violence registered the most number of recorded cases of violence against children, which comprises 56% of total cases of violence against children. So with all these current situations that we're experiencing in the Philippines, there's no other choice but for the women, for most of our population, 10% of our population, but to leave our country. And the government calls them the overseas Filipino workers. They are mostly women who are forced to migrate for survival, even if their safety is in question. Our government has facilitated this exodus with their labor export policy, and their remittance has become the top dollar earner of the Philippine economy. More than 70% of the 9 million Filipino migrant workers are women in 192 countries. Majority of them are in the prime reproductive age between 25 and 29. They are professionals, and in these different countries they work as professionals, technical employees, nurses, clericals and sales workers, entertainers, caregivers, and domestic workers. Forced migration and long separation results to dysfunctional family structure, marital infidelity, and juvenile delinquency. Middle East remains to be the top destination, followed by Asia, North America, and Europe. For 2007, remittance reached $15 billion, while $700 million went through informal channels. Many face obstacles such as contract violations, wage cuts, wage neglect, unfair labor practice, illegal recruitment, implementation of repressive migrant policies, etc. The women's struggle for liberation. Given the history and the current conditions of the Philippine semi-colonial and semi-feudal society, the Filipino women suffer from 3 layers of oppression and domination. First is foreign domination, which is basically under the U.S. imperialist domination. As half of the ruled class, they suffer from class oppression, and that's the second layer of our oppression. And the third layer is from the male oppression and domination. The Philippine National Democratic Revolution addresses the question of national sovereignty by fighting for freedom against the U.S. imperialists. On the other hand, our alternative to the class question is national industrialization and genuine land reform to respond to the call of democracy for the masses, which is 90% of the population comprised of workers and peasants. Since women's oppression was brought about by foreign and feudal domination, and they are half of the oppressed classes, their struggle for women's rights is intertwined with the national democratic aspiration and movement for change. Thus, the women's liberation is also a concern of the entire revolutionary movement. Their primary concern being the overthrow of the basis of women's oppression, U.S. imperialism and feudalism. And with the core of the movement being proletarian, built by the alliance of peasants and workers, this also unites women, peasants, and workers as half of the revolutionary class. The issue of women's rights and equality from male domination and oppression can potentially unite women from different classes to fight the feudal roots of male dominance. Thus, it is important for the women's liberation movement in the Philippines to participate in anti-feudal national democratic revolution being waged both through armed struggle in the countryside and through legal mass movement in the urban areas. The Filipino women's emancipation relies on the overthrow of foreign imperialist, feudalism, and bureaucrat capitalism. For the women's liberation movement, there are two different aspects that we're looking at, in the rural areas and the urban areas. In rural areas, where a majority of the women are peasants and constitute 75% of women in the country, the peasant women are participating in production and the peasant movement in the revolutionary armed struggle, just like what we saw in the film that we showed earlier. They also participate in the production, in the farm work, as well as in armed struggle. And due to extreme exploitation, they have as much say on, due to extreme exploitation and because of their participation in production, they have as much say as men when it comes to family matters. They have formed different women's organizations from barrio to barrio, which is the unit of the rural areas in the Philippines. And they have also joined the revolutionary struggle, performing various functions in the guerrilla zones. In urban areas, majority of the women are working class, who are wives, sisters, children of workers, or they themselves are employees of multinational companies. They comprise 15% of the female population. There are two aspects of struggles in the urban areas. One is what we call the legal aspect, and in the struggle for national democratic change, the women's movement in the cities have taken up issues on wages, rights, and livelihood. The trade unions have welcomed the participation of the women workers fighting for equality and necessary privileges such as maternity leave. The petty bourgeoisie women, which is only about 8% of our population, are students, teachers, and other professionals. They have created mass organizations such as Gabriela in order to effectively demand for fundamental changes, arouse, organize, and mobilize the working class women, and strengthen their links with the peasant women, women workers, and progressive women in other countries. There's also a parliamentary struggle, and the recent creation of Gabriela Women's Party in 2001. This have placed the struggle of women in the Philippines in a different platform. Filipino women are now bringing the issues in the Philippine Congress and have authored several policy changes that benefit women and children. Gabriela Women's Party has also been the bearer of migrants' issues in the Philippine Congress because the Migrant sectoral party was just delisted by the Supreme Court last month. However, it was also made clear that the parliamentary struggle is only one and not the principal form that will create the fundamental change in the Philippine society. We continue to assert ourselves. We continue to fight for equality in our workplace, in our unions, in our communities. We continue to launch campaigns against trafficking and women exploitation and the ills that oppress women. One of the campaign of Gabriela is the release of Angelina Bisunya Ipong, a 60-year-old peace advocate who was arrested without a warrant by armed men on March 8, 2005. She was brought to the bunker of the 1st Infantry, held incommunicado, denied access by her relatives and counsel, and blindfolded every now and then. She was continuously interrogated and physically abused while blindfolded. She was allegedly accused of being the New People's Army guerrilla. She is now 65, sickly, and still in detention. And we are hoping to get the support of different groups in order to get international pressure for her release. By overturning the political power and putting an end to imperialist racist and feudal domination. The biggest obstacles to women's liberation will be removed. Prejudices to women will still exist in our society, but the fight for equality with men will continue for total transformation into a truly democratic, independent, and peaceful society. So that's it for my talk, and I just wanted to say that for the members of this organization, the Migrant Women's Coordinating Body, it is important work what you're doing, uniting with different communities in order to fight for women's rights, women's oppression, and in order for our voices to be heard. So I say, we always say in the Philippine movement, makibaka, huwag matakot, which means dare to struggle, have no fear. Thank you.